Welcome to Running on Reddit, r/entitled-parents, where the entitlement knows no bounds. I had an acquaintance I would go to yoga with often. We started going to lunch after our workout. It was fun. We would sit on this amazing balcony and relax and have our lunch while talking about everything that had gone on that week. The first week the waiter gave me the bill, and without a second thought I just paid it. Normally I have done the "I get this time you get next time" thing. Only issue is the second time the waitress handed it straight to me again. I look at my friend who starts getting her things ready to go, and I again just pay it, although slightly confused and clearly bothered. Then the third time before the same thing happened, I asked the waitress the reason I kept getting the full bill from her. I asked while my dining partner was away. The waitress looked uncomfortable and stated my friend each time told her I was paying. I told the waitress to please split the bill, and no such arrangement had been made. My friend returned to the table, ordered another drink, and I asked the waitress for my bill so I could be checked out. She brought both our bills and I pulled out my debit card to pay for my part. I owed $12.32, much more manageable for my budget. My friend's bill was $38.24, about average of her last two bills. My friend looked at the waitress confused. Oh no, I'm not paying for that. Put it on her tab. I look at her with question. Me, excuse me, I never agreed to that. You paid the last 2 times. Me, I know I did. That is why I'm surprised you are not paying for me this time. That is when she said the annoying words, "I have kids, you don't, you can afford it." Me, excuse me? I said this clearly offended. Me, if you cannot afford it, why are you consistently ordering 3 times my bill? I glared at her. Looked at me smugly and said, "You know I don't get to go out much, I deserve this." I was so frustrated. Me, yeah, you deserve it, but not on my dime. Also you go out all the time. She called me selfish and clarified she had no card or money to pay for her part. Her and the server had some words. The waitress said she needed payment from one of us or the police would be called. It was clarified by her. Even if I personally tried to leave, the police would be called. The waitress was super mean to both and I was uncomfortable and angry because this had nothing to do with me. I just sat next to this girl. I paid EM's part of the bill and left a note and 0% tip on my receipt. I stopped talking to EM. EM made it a point to tell everyone in class she was so confused, did not understand what the problem was, and found me selfish considering it was only $38. I stopped going to that studio. The restaurant called and asked if they could do anything. I just told them to train staff regarding checkout procedures. It was an odd situation for me. I was uncomfortable, and I feel threatening police on me for food and drink I did not order or touch was uncalled for. I never went back. Summary: EM tells waitress I'm paying behind my back. Tells me she deserves it because she has kids. I do not. Gets 3 free lunches. Police almost called 3rd time. She feels victimized. Edit 2. I talked to a lawyer about the incident out of curiosity. If I would have had the time, the police would have not charged me with anything, and I would have been free to leave. I chose not to deal with this escalating situation, and paid so I could be done with it. Legally the server had no right to keep me there. I did say split the check, and asked to pay and leave after the last incident. I was told I was not allowed to leave until the situation was resolved. It is not an interpersonal squabble, it was just literally not my bill. I only hung out with EM the 3 times I wrote about here outside of yoga. It is not my responsibility to arrange her business transactions, nonetheless assist the server with their business transaction. Me choosing to pay 2 times before, even though I did not wish to do so, does not change the fact that I said no the 3rd time. People agreeing with the server forcing a bill on me are saying one should be liable to pay for anyone sitting next to them at a bar or restaurant. That would mean I could walk up to a table, sit down and eat, then force the other people there to pay. Talk about lack of common courtesy, way to take advantage of your friends. So this happened a couple of years ago, but it still just hurts. My dad and I have never really seen eye to eye. He grew up with no sisters and an awful mother figure, and none of his friends have daughters, only sons. I don't blame him for struggling to raise a girl when he had absolutely no reference point, but he didn't need to show blatant favoritism towards my brother. I've always been the black sheep a little. My parents and younger brother have always been this nice little trio. My brother is a mummy's boy, but dad dotes on him regardless. He's 4 years younger than me. I'm 18, he's 14. I've struggled to find my place in the family. Even my standing as which sibling I'm isn't certain, because my dad accidentally impregnated a girl at 19, had my half brother, and I was born 14 years later. My older brother was enough in my life that I don't feel like the oldest child, but not enough to feel like the middle. I'm just dad's retrial at parenting, and my brother is the beneficiary of all his practice. Now aside from that little rant, the actual story. My brother and I are very musical. I play a multitude of instruments. He just plays saxophone, and he's good. Always has been. He suffered classic younger sibling syndrome. We were in a much better financial position when I began playing clarinet, that I got a really good beginner intermediate model that I still play today. When he started about 4 years later, things had gotten tight, so he had to rent his from the local concert band, and it wasn't great. Originally it was fine, because my parents didn't want to invest in something he might not commit to, but he didn't loved it. At this point I was 15, and I'd been working for 2 years at a local sports club, earning less than minimum wage, because I was underage, working my butt off, and saving a pretty hefty percentage of my income. My father, who felt responsible for my job, since he knew the owner, but I'd actually gotten the job myself, decided he was entitled to my savings, about $500 at the time. His exact words were, "We could use your savings to buy your brother a better saxophone." God, it crushed me. First of all, you cannot get a sax better than the one he has for only $500. Secondly, what kind of father asks one child to give up practically 2 years of work for another? It made me feel like he had more pride or hope for his son that his daughter's savings should contribute towards it, even though at the time I was saving for a student level clarinet and he knew that. He never offered to pay the money back or anything, and thankfully, after I asked Mum what she thought of it and she lost her mind, it was never brought up again, though he has asked for my savings since then, and I've said no. Can't wait to move out next year. Edit. So I should make a couple of things clear. My father didn't actually take the money. Mum shut that situation down real quick, but it didn't stop him from asking and trying to manipulate me into giving them up for a long time. I live in New Zealand, and my accounts have been in my name since I was 13. My parents have just as much right to them as a stranger across the street. Absolute zero. Credit isn't really a thing here, so that's not an issue either. Can't believe all the attention this got, and thanks for all the advice. Good thing that entitled dad backed off. It was OP's hard-earned cash. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite instrument to listen to is. If you like the content and want to support the channel, like and subscribe right now, or you'll be running on fumes. I lived in Melbourne, Australia for about a year, 2013 to 2014. There, I met a gorgeous same-sex couple, Brighten and Eric, name changed. They were both bisexual. They lived in the same building as me on the floor directly above mine. I soon entered into a sexual relationship with both of them. We would have threesomes, and sometimes gangbangs. Besides the awesome Shreks, I also became really good friends with them, and we are still in touch. It was tons of fun for all involved. Among my neighbors were a middle-aged couple with 2 children. They lived right across the hallway from me, and were quick to judge us after seeing Brian and Eric exiting my apartment early in the morning on more than one occasion. The woman, Karen, asked me in the elevator what I was doing with those 2 gays. I politely told her it was none of her business. When she kept on pestering me, I told her, "If you must know, I'm friends with benefits with them. Now leave me alone." I still remember the look of shock on her face. I don't think she expected me to reply so brazenly. When I told Brian and Eric about this, they shared their own experience in dealing with them. This couple was rather homophobic too, and had tried to talk to the property manager about the guys moving into a building with families and children. They were told to duck off, just not in so many words, but anytime either or both of these guys were in the elevator with them or ran into them in the parking lot, the husband, let's call him Todd, would stand between them and his kids while giving Brian and or Derek angry looks. Must have been trying to prevent their kids from catching the gay. Lol. In the weeks that followed, the entitled couple continued to give me the stink eye anytime they saw me. I just smiled back at them sweetly, which pissed them off even more. On one occasion, their teenage daughter said good morning to me and tried to make small talk before her mother dragged her away by the arm while berating her for talking to that woman. Interestingly, their kids seemed very well behaved and nice, and I truly felt sorry for them. My next door neighbors, another couple with kids with whom I got along very well, later told me that EM had tried to get them to file a noise complaint against me. According to EM's logic, since I shared a wall with that family, they could probably hear all the ungodly noises coming from my apartment and they should complain in order to protect their children. The nice couple told them they would do no such thing, as I had never bothered them and they had never heard any such noises coming out of my apartment. One night, Brian, Derek and I decided to have a foursome that would involve the three of us and Brian and Derek's friend Dean. The next morning, Dean asked if he could come back to my place with me, as it was a Sunday morning and Dean was hotter than hell. I agreed. As he and I were walking down the hallway to my place, Karen was just getting out of hers. She saw Dean and I smiling and talking, and his arm around my waist, and approached me, asking angrily if I was being a skank and selling my body. I told her she was insane and asked her to kindly duck off. Later that day, I received a call from the property manager. She wanted to let me know that Karen and Todd had complained that I was a prostitute and that it was dangerous for their children to be in the same building as me. They told her in great detail about how I was bringing home different men. The property manager had gotten to know Brian and Derek quite well and had an inkling that I was friends with them. So she contacted them and they told her all about the entitled parents' crazy behavior and accusations, and that the man they had seen me with was a mutual friend. There was no prostitution going on. The property manager dissuaded EP from filing any sort of false complaint against me, as it could cause a world of trouble for them. I thanked that kind lady and later had a good chuckle over it all with Brian and Derek. The blatant harassment from Karen and Todd had stopped, but of course, the hateful looks continued. On one occasion, when we were in the elevator together, Karen made a pathetic attempt at shaming me by condescendingly asking if I was going to have any men over that night. What she didn't realize is that shame about my promiscuity is something I'm entirely incapable of feeling. I proceeded to tell her in great detail about all the Shrek's acts I was going to engage in that evening. I mean, she's the one who asked, right? After this fun little interaction, she and her husband avoided me completely. Good times. The entitled parents were really just trying to cause trouble. OP sounded like they weren't rude, messy, or disruptful neighbors. Certainly better than some of the neighbors I have had. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on the bell or you'll be running on fumes. See you in the next video.